All right, welcome to day 3 of the biological unit. Today we're going to focus on the nervous and endocrine system. These are going to be the main ways that the brain is going to communicate with the rest of the body. And we start off first with the nervous system. The nervous system we can divide and subdivide, and we'll start off with dividing into its two main sections. We have our central nervous system, which is our brain and spinal cord. This is obviously the communication central of the nervous system. And it's the reason why if you have catastrophic injuries to, either the brain or to the spinal cord, you're going to end up with devastating consequences for the rest of the body, because whatever signals the brain is trying to get to the rest of the body just aren't going to be able to pass through, or not going to be able to pass through as efficiently. Peripheral is everything else, everything outside of the central nervous system. The peripheral can be further divided into the autonomic and the somatic. The autonomic is going to manage those things that you don't have to consciously think about: heart rate, breathing, your hunger, thirst, your body temperature, those types of things that you're not really regulating on on a conscious level. The somatic system is going to be those things that you can consciously control: your voluntary muscle movements, those types of things. Now, it's not necessarily that you're always, consciously thinking about them, but it's things that you can certainly consciously control exactly what you're doing. With the autonomic system, we can further divide it into sympathetic and parasympathetic. The sympathetic nervous system is being really what is preparing you for your fight or flight response. This is your stress response. It's the system that's going to respond when your brain perceives a potential threat or something that's potentially exciting. We're going to get into the sympathetic versus parasympathetic nervous systems in a little bit more detail here. You can see from this chart, on the left-hand side is the sympathetic nervous system responses. On the right-hand side, the parasympathetic nervous system responses. We're going to walk through these, really the sympathetic first, and talk about what's going on with each of these. So let's imagine, and we've used this example in class before, that you step out of Granby High School and you're facing the bear on Granby Street. And your body is going to immediately start to prepare and start to mobilize resources to deal with this bear that is coming at you. And so what's it going to do? We can kind of go down the list here. It's going to first dilate your pupils. And obviously dilating the pupils is going to allow more light in. It's going to allow you to process visual information more quickly, more efficiently. Your cardiovascular system is going to start to elevate its response. Your breathing rate is going to go up. Your heart rate is going to go up. All of this is about mobilizing energy and getting that energy both to your muscles in order to create a physical response, and to your brain in order to produce your strategy, your mental plan of exactly how you're going to deal with this bear that's coming at you. And so the dilating of the pupils and the increasing production of the cardiovascular system are two examples of how certain systems are going to be elevated and they're going to be more active. The liver is certainly going to be another example of this, as it's going to start to release more and more glucose, essentially energy for the body to be able to burn that very quickly, much more quickly than you typically would, in an effort to have as much energy available as possible. Your adrenal glands are going to start to release adrenaline and noradrenaline, or what is sometimes referred to as epinephrine and norepinephrine. And those are obviously hormones that are being released that, in essence, they're going to allow your muscles and your cardiovascular system to operate more efficiently. There's a variety of stress hormones that do this for us. And so when people, if you've ever played sports, and you're excited at the beginning of the game, and you feel like you're like a basketball player who's shooting the ball too far. A lot of that is an adrenaline response. Your muscles are operating more efficiently. You're not quite used to it, and you have to kind of calm yourself down and work your way through that. So all of those systems are really elevated. They're getting you ready. Now, on the other hand, there are other systems that your body is down-regulating its response. It doesn't want these regions of the body really responding at all. So we can take a look at the stomach, for example, and the bladder. we are basically shutting down these systems. There's really no need to continue with the digestive process if you're worried about facing this bear being digested. You want to shut down this process. You don't want to spend any energy processing, food or anything along those lines. You're not as concerned about maintaining bladder regulation. So those functions decrease as well. Not listed on this chart, but certainly immune system responses are downregulated. You're not going to, your body is not worried about fighting off long-term threats such as disease when it's got this bear facing you. And then finally, of course, your reproductive system is obviously going to be downregulated as well, as there's really no need to worry about any of that while you are dealing with this bear. So this is all highly tuned. It's a very efficient method of dealing with short-term stressors such as bears or lions or any other types of threats that are of that nature. Kind of the physical threat that's going to be immediate, it's going to be quick. You're either going to be able to deal with it effectively or you're not. But one way or the other, it's a very short-term response. And this whole system is meant to be a short-term response. And it works very well for that. And there's nothing unhealthy about that in terms of the short-term response. But what gets us into trouble is that oftentimes we get into more longer-term stress responses in modern societies, worried about finances all the time. If you lost your job, end a relationship, whatever it might be, our body often responds in the exact same way with this sympathetic nervous system response. It may not be at the heightened level as immediate threats such as a bear, but it's this constant elevated level of stress response by the sympathetic nervous system that ultimately is going to lead to a variety of ailments. With the elevated cardiovascular effort, it starts to lead to cardiovascular disease. With the downregulation of immune system response, it starts to make you more susceptible to a whole variety of illnesses, from the common cold to cancer and everything in between. And so while the sympathetic nervous system, again, is very efficient in dealing with these short-term stressors, it can be very unhealthy if you're in this constant state of stress. And so that's why our body has this parasympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is really doing basically the opposite of what the sympathetic nervous system is doing. Whatever the sympathetic nervous system was doing to either elevate responses or to downregulate responses, it's now the parasympathetic nervous system is returning everything to what we call homeostasis, kind of that normal balance that your body wants to be in. Now, within the nervous system, we can talk about a variety of other functions. Certainly one is something such as a reflex. Let's imagine that you have accidentally put your hand on a stove, for example. If you've ever experienced that, you may experience it as if your hand started to pull away before you're even consciously aware of what's going on. And because of what's causing that is what we've known as a reflex. And what's going on in the nervous system with a reflex is these sensory neurons are receiving information from your hand that's saying, they're sending basically a pain response. And that pain response is working its way towards your spinal cord. And within the spinal cord, we have what we call interneurons. These interneurons are on the one hand, going to send the information on towards the brain, but it's also going to send information right back to the motor neurons that are existing in the hand and telling the motor neuron, hey, this is a threat. We need to get away from it immediately. And it's going to start that response of moving your hand before you even have a conscious thought of it. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about a reflex. It's a response that your body has before your brain is even able to process that information. And it's typically something that is there to protect you from some sort of immediate threat. All right, our endocrine system. We need to start off by comparing what the endocrine system is versus the nervous system. The nervous system is made up of our nerve cells. So it's that electrical chemical system. It's going to be a very fast-moving system. The nervous system is also a very specific system. It typically has it is controlling very specific regions of the body, very specific organs, whatever it might be. The endocrine system is a system of communication from the brain to the body that goes through the bloodstream. And so therefore it is a more general response typically, and it is also a slower response. In addition, the nervous system, the response is quick, and then the end of the response is typically quick as well. With the endocrine system, the response is a little bit slower, and it usually takes a little bit longer for the response to dissipate. And so here are some major sections of the endocrine system that you need to know. We start off actually in the brain with the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is the region of the brain that is going to work with the pituitary gland to really regulate and control the rest of the endocrine system. The pituitary gland is sometimes referred to as the master gland because it is controlling what the rest of the glands are doing. And so the hypothalamus is going to send these messages. The pituitary gland is going to release a variety of hormones that tell other glands what to release and what not to release. For the purposes of our class, we don't particularly need to know parathyroids. The thyroid gland, it is good to know because it's involved with metabolism and the processing of food into energy. And it's the thyroid gland is one that has a common disorders of either hypo or hyperthyroidism, which is either a thyroid that is either overproductive or underproductive and can result in some major weight issues in addition to other health problems. We've already talked about the adrenal glands when we were talking about how the nervous system gets these glands going, but the adrenal glands are again going to release some of our stress hormones. That is our part of that fight or flight response. And then, of course, we have the testes and the ovaries. They're going to release male and female sex hormones. It's important to note that it's sometimes oversimplified that testosterone is just a male sex hormone. Testosterone is found in both males and females, and both is going to control something such as sex drive. But differences obviously exist with males having a higher amount of testosterone in the system versus females, and the same with females having a higher amount of estrogen and other more female sex hormones. So while they are more predominant one versus the other, it's not that they're exclusive in one versus the other. All right, and that wraps up our nervous system versus endocrine system. Again, you want to make sure that you understand the basic differences between the two. Endocrine system is going to be that slower response through the bloodstream, and it's slower to dissipate. And then the nervous system is going to be a quicker response that is going to be very specific and it's going to end very quickly as well. So one last example to kind of highlight that, if you were to say, to go outside at 1 a.m. taking out the trash, and you're a little on edge because you just watched, a suspenseful movie. You're outside with your trash bag, and out of the corner of your eye, you see some movement, and so you immediately start this fight or flight response. And so your nervous system is going to control your muscle movements. It's going to control your turning of your head. You're looking to see what it is. And it's also going to kickstart your endocrine system's response with releasing these stress hormones. Well, as you turn your head and see what it is, you realize it's just the leaves on a bush is kind of blowing around, and you immediately cognitively, consciously, you dismiss the threat, but you still kind of feel even more on edge. You still feel kind of nervous as a result of this. You haven't quite let go of that nervousness. Well, the reason you're slower to let go of that nervousness is because the stress hormones that have been released in response to this, they're still flowing through your system. And they're going to be flowing through your system for a couple of minutes. That's the slowness of the endocrine system. And so it's going to take you a little while to kind of get down from being on edge as a result of being a little scared as you're out taking the trash out at 1 a.m. All right, if you have any questions, you can always email me at ghsteacher@gmail.com, or you can ask them in class. Otherwise, good night.